Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Good morning. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon. Finally, no more gimmicks, no more April Fool's jokes, no more this, no more that. We are actually back as we should be. Everything is as it should be because Regret the Van is also here. How are you doing, Regret?
Well, tired, because I should be asleep.
Go to bed. Except
this
don't.
Is pretty much my...
Except don't.
This is my 2 in the
need
morning.
you. This is your 2 in the morning? Well, stop
This is
being a
my 2 in the
vampire.
morning.
Just don't do that.
Except for I'm a night walker. I walk the night. That's what I do.
You can also ignore that what sound in the background. If it is being picked up by my mic, someone is trying to call my phone. They are severely disappointed right now. So, I want to talk about a story that I intentionally ignored last week. Because, despite fake being part of the EIB network and talking about cars for 10 minutes, I tried to have everything else be as factual as possible. And mad-catz filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy came out literally 8 hours before April Fool's. And now we do have confirmation. Yeah. mad-catz is dying. A moment of silence for those crazy lunatics making awkwardly designed controllers. So, for the most part, I've been a PC gamer. I don't have a whole lot of experience with controllers. But mad-catz has always just been super, super, super awkward in the way their controllers have been designed. That's been your experience as well, right?
Actually, I've had the opposite experience.
Really?
Yes. The mad-catz PlayStation 2 controller, pretty much the one I had an extra set of function buttons that pretty much nestled in between the triggers. So the R2, L2, and those. That pretty much was for fighting games. The thing was okay built, but it actually felt okay to have in your hands. Yeah, it looked like the Steam controller with the PlayStation 2 stuff on it.
Okay. And maybe it's just been the ones I've seen, it looked like they were trying to make the N64 style controller work with every platform. Because it just seemed like they went out of the way, at least the ones I saw, tried to go out of the way to try and be unique and add stuff where it wasn't necessary. Kind of like the Steam controller, which I'm holding in my hands currently, trying to add things like trackpads, only to have it go, hey, you know what would be better here? Buttons. That's what I'm missing. Buttons. And fortunately, at least in the defense of the Steam controller, at least most days, it is using the joystick for movement. And it is usable to varying degrees.
I don't think the Steam controller is going to beat an Xbox 360 controller on Windows. Just plug it in and boom, everything works.
I will say this much though. I now have. Right now my controller arsenal is a Steam controller, a PS4 controller, and my mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, where
the problem I actually have with the PS4 controller is, for whatever reason, the moment you plug in the PS4 controller or try to connect it, it immediately takes over the sound and has it go through the controller. And that's the only reason why, if there's ever a game where I feel like, I could use a controller today, I reach for the Steam one because it doesn't try to commandeer my sound card. But we're getting off topic because none of them has to do with mad-catz.
No.
When was the last time I can't remember the last time I actually saw a mad-catz controller actually out in a store.
The last one I can think I saw was in a GameStop in more of a rural city, they had one. I think it was a GameCube controller. They had one in like the used baggie.
Yeah. So
But
not even a new one. It was
No.
one that was cashed in.
yeah,
I mean, what has madcatz even been doing? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
I mean, have they just been like over in a corporate ditch bleeding out until today?
That may have very well been what was happening to them, that they just couldn't figure out what they needed to do. And that happens with companies, is that they go, we're going to do this, 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 and they end up just hemorrhaging themselves to death because management can't figure out what they're trying to do.
That's a shame.
So just before they go to release a product, management goes, no, we can't release that, scrap it all. And I would probably guess that's what was happening with madcatz.
Well, all sorts of ancient gaming jokes. Another generation will never know.
Now,
all because madcatz and their awkward designs will never be seen again.
Now, actually, what I bet could happen, if we see, and they actually mentioned in the PCPR article that somebody can purchase the madcatz trademark and use it.
But here's the thing. You know that if Logitech or Corsair... Well, maybe... I take that. If someone like a Logitech were to get madcatz, the awkward designs would go away. Corsair, on the other hand, if Corsair grabbed madcatz, I think all the super awkward designs would definitely stay in, just because Corsair seems to be just throwing all sorts of angular designs at the wall to be as edgy as possible.
Actually, what I would see with like Logitech, doing with the madcatz is spinning off their gaming stuff.
True.
Under the madcatz, just like how they did that, their consumer super friendly under Logi. So I could see Logitech doing that.
You just reminded me that Logi exists.
I know, and I actually saw some. It's like, this is just a standard Logitech keyboard. Why are they calling it a Logi?
You must be destroyed now.
Yeah, because I remember that G was all up in arms when Logitech announced this. Like, Logitech's going to rename themselves Logi, it's going to be consumers. Ree! And then everybody just kind of, all the same people went, no, it's just a brand.
For those of you in the real world, G refers to the Technology 4chan board, where all you'll hear is nothing but people assuming everything that runs on electricity is part of a botnet and will take you over.
Well, everything is part of the botnet.
And with that, we move on. To something that may in fact actually be part of the botnet. Comcast unveiling Xfinity Mobile. I cannot think of a single thing in this world I wanted less than this.
Well, yeah, I'll trust my Verizon Fios over this.
You know what's... Here's the thing. This isn't even a competition of Verizon Fios. It's competing against Verizon. And the best part is that this isn't even using Comcast's network. It's piggybacking on Verizon's network. It's using Verizon's tower with Comcast with Verizon. On top of that, with Comcast regulation.
What?
Hey kids, did you hate your AT&T contract? Well, you can go to Comcast, which will make your AT&T contract seem like a blessing.
Yeah, that's the scary part. Is it's like, why? Who at Verizon thought that this was a good idea?
The accountant.
It had to have been a bean counter to think that this was a good idea.
That's the thing. Verizon wins in this deal.
Oh, 100%. They totally win.
They're the only winner in this. The customer gets Verizon service at slightly less than what Verizon charges, but they then have to have Comcast cable, which automatically means, at least here for us in southeastern Wisconsin, which is where me and Regret are from, we first off can't use it. Not that we want to.
Yeah, fuck. Sorry. Yeah. Screw Comcast. Just
beep. I'm sorry. The closest thing I have to a beep tone I could have used is the Rush Limbaugh joke tone I quickly snatched for last week. So I don't have it's just seriously. I mean, the only reason people go with Comcast cable is because that's all that's available in their area. The moment any sort of competition comes in, even AT&T Uverse, which is all sorts of other contractual BS, everyone immediately hops onto that because they prefer that. That is how rough Comcast is in how they manage things.
Yep. Well, no, like one of the headline I was reading, like someone actually explained it in logic. Oh no, it's getting in the way of a good headline. Was that Comcast bills customers after hurricane, one of the big hurricanes that hit the northeast, for damaged and missing equipment, and everybody was getting all up in arms. It's like, yeah, I could totally see Comcast doing that to a customer. They just had their house flattened. Here's a bill for the missing and destroyed equipment. Never mind the fact that insurance companies across the board are writing this off as a weather-related thing and coughing up money.
Yeah, no, and I always try to see it from both sides of the table. I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes. Mm-hmm. Comcast is just notorious for bad business practices.
Yep.
It's just the truth. It's not that I'm trying to hate on companies. It's that I'm trying to hate on Comcast in general because that's actually how they behave. The bottom line is that this is a service that nobody wanted. And I will be stunned if I go through article after article after article after article of every single tech person out there, regardless on where their biases are, and actually find anyone that thinks that, yes, this is what I wanted. I wanted Comcast to run my cell phone.
Yeah.
So before I get depressed, let's move on.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
To NVIDIA releasing the Titan X. Again. No, just 3. This is the 3rd Titan X. So, let's go over the history of the Titan X. 'Cause this is getting to become a naming nightmare. So first, the Titan X came out, which was I believe, Kepler-based... No, it wasn't Kepler. It was Maxwell. That first Titan X was Maxwell-based.
Okay, yeah.
Then the Titan X came out again, although everyone called it... Although a lot of people were calling it the Titan X Black, which was a Pascal part. It ran on the GP104 GPU. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, like Tech Linus, called it the Titan XP. because it's the Pascal version.
Yep.
Now NVIDIA re-releases the Titan X with Pascal running a fully unlocked GP102, and actually calls it the Titan XP, but the actual card only has the Titan X written on it. Did everyone catch that? Are we all on the same page?
So honestly, NVIDIA just could have simply called it the X3 and had been done with it.
I mean, I'm willing to bet they wanted to call it the Titan P, but that sounds like the worst name ever.
Yeah.
And just is asking to be made fun of.
Yep.
If you have a terrible joke involving the name Titan P, please email us at do-not-email-me@do-not-email-me.no.
No, I'm just like...
Or at whatever...
That sounds like something you would find in a porno.
I refer you to my previous statement of email your terrible Titan P jokes to do-not-email-me at do-not-email-me.no. But here's the bottom line with the Titan X Mark III. It is, in fact, a fully unlocked GP102. So despite the existence of the GTX 1080... I'm sorry, I got distracted by the chat. The GTX 1080 Ti... The XP is now officially the most powerful graphic card on the planet for gaming.
And at a reasonable price tag for the Titan as to what the original released for $3,000, and it didn't really budge from that price at all.
So let's actually talk about that price for a minute. I actually want to go down a history because I actually know the history of the Titan prices because they're all absurd for what they are. The original Titan came out at $1,000.
Okay.
Then the Titan X came out. Also, the original Titan was a Kepler-based part. That was at $1,000. The Titan X, which was a Maxwell part, came out at $1,000. Then the Titan Z came out, which was a triple slot dual GPU on one card. That was out for $3,000. Then the Titan X Mark II came out, which was a Pascal part, came out for $1,200. And now the Titan XP Mark III, the Titan XP, also known as the Titan X Mark III, which is the new Pascal part, the one we're talking about now, is now out for $1,200.
So, in the grand scheme of things, it's about the right price for that, for the card.
Compared to the other Titans, yes. But can you justify spending $600 more for a 12% performance increase?
Not really. That's...
Exactly. What makes more... If you want the most amount of power in one rig, you can use a Titan XP. You are better off, though, putting in two 1080 Ti's. Same price, 60% additional performance that you don't get on the Titan.
All right, I'm just taking a look. So the Titan is not as reliable. Is
Yes.
That really...
You can SLI it. Unless they use NVIDIA-Link. Which that detail I don't have. You can combine two of them. I'm pretty sure it's SLI for now. I'm willing to bet NVIDIA-Link is not going to come out until the 11 series. With, what is it, Volta? I think is the name of the next generation.
Yeah, I haven't even heard anything beyond what's out currently.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Usually, the only advantage the Titans have over their GTX counterparts is precision floating point units. They are better at things that the Quadro series cards do than the GTX cards. The Titan is a good option for professionals that also do gaming on the same card. It's also a decent substitute for a Quadro card if they're not using something that the Quadros are specifically warranted for. In short, more than likely if you're listening to me right now, you are not the target consumer for the Titan XP. Because, I mean, when push comes to shove for that kind of money, for $1,200, you could build an entire rig for that amount of money. You can build a good rig for that amount of money. You can build a good rig running a 1080 Ti on it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk for a minute about the differences between the Quadro cards and the GTX ones for a minute. The Quadros are more built for scientific purposes. They're built to have multiple of these cards in there to calculate out various things or to render. That's their sole purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
The Titan does that and also has a lot of the GTX DNA in it. That's pretty much where it comes in. Now, back to the Quadros for a minute, because now that all the Quadros have come out for the Pascal versions, we do have a little bit of a roundup, taking a look at each of these Quadros and comparing them to the Radeon Pro Duo, which is the most powerful Radeon there is at the moment. And it's kind of fascinating that for once, AMD wins.
That's a rarity.
It's not even a competition. I mean, we could go over forever about, okay, the Quadro P2000 has a GPU 106 and a low-end GPU. I mean, what's really interesting is that the Quadro P4000 single slot card fits an entire 1070 in there.
Okay.
That, I think, is just neat. That they managed to condense that down that much. And wondering why we can't do the same thing in our rigs.
Because raisins?
Are there better raisins?
No, not really.
That's terrible. Then the Quadro P5000, which is basically the equivalent of a 1080.
Yep. And it looks identical to the 1080 except for it says Quattro.
Oh, and it also has like green on the side.
Which I really like that touch. It's like, why can't we have that?
Because we can't have nice things.
I know.
I mean, plus the top. I mean, just to compare, the 1080 is a $500 card. The Quadro P5000 is a $2,000 card.
Mm-hmm.
You then compare that to the Radeon Pro Duo, which is a dual GPU card. And of course, the Radeon Pro Duo is much higher wattage, 350 watts, compared to the P5000, which is 180 watts. Price point is radically different. $800 for the Radeon Pro, $2,000 for the P5000. The performance on the Radeon Pro is double what the Quadro does.
Well, I can at least say that if AMD has managed to beat Nvidia in where pretty much Nvidia is making the most money with the Quadro cards, then there may be actually some hope for AMD after all.
Here's the part that's really annoying to me. Why, AMD? Why didn't you put this effort into the gaming side? I mean, you look at the current AMD lineup, which I had to this morning for a story we're about to get to in a moment, and it looked like AMD gave up. They pumped out the 480 and said, "Oh, that's the best we can do. I guess we can only compete with the 1060 this year."
Yeah, come on, AMD.
You could have done more.
Yep.
You could have at least tried to play.
But then we're also going to I'm going to point out that the residential market for this stuff, for high-end graphics cards, is very much a niche market when you think about it.
This is true.
And whereas the enterprise side of computing is up to, 10 times? Actually, more than 10 times. It's probably...
Yeah, actually, that's actually a good question.
Times.
That's actually a good question, just on the grounds that most of rendering and calculations is nowadays more CPU intensive than GPU. There are some exceptions to it. Oil research, but by far simulated how everything's gonna work when you drill is all done on the GPU. Lord knows, actually seeing those oil calculation rigs come off lease was comical. The amount of GPU horsepower they shoved into one box.
Which, by the way, has your supplier got anything interesting?
Has your supplier could you sound any more sketch? No. Oh. No. The old guys I used to get my off-lease stuff from hasn't had anything really interesting. They had some Z-books come off, that was about it.
Aw, okay.
And I think I saw a Z440 show up for like 5 minutes.
Well,
it was there, and then you refresh the page, and it was gone. Someone bought it. So now that we've established the fact that I know people who sell off-lease computers and has nothing to do with dealing in drugs, let's move on to the Xbox One. What probably everyone came here to actually go see. So some details came out for the Xbox project-scorpio. This is going to be the competitor to the PS4 Pro, which I think we've gone over actually on this show. I can't remember now. I think we've gone over how much of a disappointment the PS4 Pro was.
I don't think, if you did it one of the times I wasn't available.
All right, let's quickly go over it. The PS4 Pro, although is a decent rig for the money, it's $399, and you do get the equivalent of an RX 470 in there. That's about what the GPU comes out to. But it's heavily limited by the CPU. They actually kept the same cruddy, underpowered, underwhelming octa-core I can't remember that. Yeah, the octa-core, like, they took the 1.6 octa-core processor and overclocked it to 2.1.
Okay.
And in every single spec test, that was the bottleneck. Now we have no idea what the CPU is going to be inside the Xbox One Scorpio yet. A lot of the details that are coming out are about the customized Radeon GPU that's going to be in it. And I could go over all the disgusting details. The GPU is going to be clocked at 1172 megahertz, and it's going to have going to have this much RAM on it and blah, 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 blah. Whatever. That means literally nothing until you get to the performance. And the performance that's been coming out is that it's 6 teraflops.
Not a insignificant number there.
By comparison, the Titan XP, which is currently the most powerful GPU out there, is 12.15 teraflops. So about half the performance of the Titan XP, which is no slouch.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Project Scorpio is looking to be shaping up to a very competent, very powerful console. We may actually see a return back to the original console model that you have a console out for a few years, like 6 years, and then you retire it with a new unit. I was actually very disappointed to see that they were shifting away towards this consumer replace it every year.
Oh, that's disappointing.
What?
So I just looked... Alright, I found some details about the CPU. And it's... Oh, wait a minute. Okay, no. Never mind, I don't have details. The only thing they have is that it's a 2.3 gigahertz processor, and it's going to be using custom x86 cores. People are suspecting it's Ryzen, which if it is, that's extremely helpful. If it's more modified Jaguar cores, which was the code word I was searching for earlier and I completely forgot what it was, then that's going to run into the same problems as the PS4 Pro. Now, the way the consoles are going now is that they are sticking with the same architecture on each of these bumps.
Mm-hmm.
When you went from... I'm trying to think, what was the original Xbox?
The original...
Was that PowerPC too?
The actual original Xbox from 2000?
Yeah.
That was a Celeron-based Pentium 3.
So it was x86.
It was x86 32-bit.
So we went from x86 to PowerPC to x86 again in the Xbox world. In the PlayStation, we went from... I'm trying to think. PlayStation 2, that was PowerPC, I think.
PlayStation is always... Pretty much PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 were varieties of PowerPC based or RISC based.
Well, the PS3 I remember was Cell.
Yeah, it was Cell, but that was based off of a PowerPC G.
Okay, so
G5,
that all right. So that was the that was also PowerPC based. Then they switched to x86. My point is that these new consoles are still on the same architecture. And in fact, on the software side, their base is still the same. So, this does mean, because this is the question I get the most, and the funny thing is that we don't usually see this sort of thing on the console side. As a PC gamer, I've seen it over and over and over again. It's no big deal to me. Your previous games will work on the Xbox One Project Scorpio. That's not up for debate. That is an actual thing. If anyone is telling you that the Xbox One Scorpio will only run Xbox One Scorpio games, they are lying. They are wrong. Okay? Can you please do not email me this question anymore? Do not ask me this question anymore in chat. Your old games will work on the new console.
Yeah, backwards compatibility. What's that? Well, it turns out this one does have it, so...
Yes, this one actually does have, and perfectly too, because they're not changing the OS platform.
And so long as it responds to the commands that the Jaguar cores responded to, software is going to run. It's going to run a bit faster, but...
And it most likely will, because it's the same manufacturer. It's going to be an AMD part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went through and had a little bit of fun this morning. One fun project I always love to do with these consoles, especially since they now run on x86, is how much would it cost to build a PC with the same specs?
That's always a fun mental game to play.
No, Unjust Mana in the chat. Your SNES games will not work on the new Xbox. I am also going to email you a giant trout. I want you to hit yourself with it. Please.
Nintendo seems to have issues with backwards compatibility.
To be fair, Nintendo's primary focus is in providing a unique experience.
Yeah.
Can you please hit Unjust Banana for me? I said no such thing, Unjust Banana. I did not say that it would. So, currently the closest AMD card I can find that reaches 6 teraflops is the current RX 480. Now, this card is admittedly a little less powerful than the card that's going to be in the Xbox One Scorpio. And down the road, when we have more details, I will actually go out and redesign the build. But for the purposes of this build, we're going to use an RX 480. It's just the closest I can get.
Okay.
5.8 teraflops versus 6 teraflops. So here's what I got. I started off with the same case and power supply as I used for the PlayStation Pro build, and that is the Silverstone Raven. That is a very thin, long console-shaped case, as well as a 300-watt power supply internally. We've got two 8GB DDR4 sticks. I know that is technically not the same speed as the GDDR5 that the Xbox One Scorpio will use. That's fine, go overclock it. You'll be closer, and it doesn't really matter anyway. I mean, let's be real honest. The speed difference between DDR4 and GDDR5, although there is a difference, it's not going to matter a whole lot. Especially if you go and overclock the RAM some. It's going to serve our purposes. The motherboard I use for the base is the ASRock Fatality Z270 Mini ITX board. I went and grabbed the cheapest RX 480 I could. In this case, it's an MSI Radeon RX 480. And then the processor, it's hard to pin down what's going to get similar performance to the Jaguar cores. Because the Jaguars are just multiple cores running at tablet speeds. Closest I got that's going to be able to game well is the Intel Pentium G4560 3.5 GHz dual-core processor. Already I see your eyebrows raise, Regret.
Yeah. That's an odd choice.
It's an odd choice because, unfortunately, the Core i3s, first off, their benchmarks are way higher than the Jaguar cores.
Yeah, and that was going to be the problem. And you're trying to build a console killer machine that's in the same size as the form factor of the console. Putting that processor in there is the bottleneck. That is going to be hamstringing that machine left and right. A dual core. Come on.
So.
And I understand that the Xbox is running a mobile processor. or something like that, but still.
The problem is that the cheapest quad core, you start getting to the Core i5 series, and then you're talking $200 for the processor alone. The goal here is to build... We're not building a console killer. If I was building a console killer, I'd just go build a console killer. Just do it. Throw in a Core i5, throw in a Core i7, throw in a GTX 1080, bam, you killed the console. You outperformed it. You win. It's not that hard. The goal of this exercise, though, is to get as close to the specs as possible and to figure out how much would it cost to build it. Because this actually gives us a better idea of how much it would, of how close the cost is going to be to what the cost of the actual console is. Normally doing this, you end up about 20% higher. The total cost of this is $648.71.
Okay. Let's see.
That's the goal of the exercise.
Okay.
Now, of course, you could tweak this however you want. Go downgrade the 480 to a 470, or put in a 1060 because the 1060 tends to perform better.
Yeah, Banana just pointed something out. No operating system.
Whoop-de-doo.
Since that is a critical component of PC gaming.
Go get your SteamOS.
Oof. Ew. Ew.
You're missing the point of the exercise. Completely missing the point. The point of the exercise is, in fact, to see how much the hardware costs.
Mm-hmm. Software is pretty much irrelevant in this case.
Exactly. I mean, the sole purpose is to build the PC equivalent of it. Go throw on whatever you want. Go bootleg the Xbox One operating system if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
That'd be a funny experiment there.
Yes, I would. What I'm finding actually more fascinating is that the Xbox Scorpio is not doing the traditional cooling method of a heat pipe, but is actually going for a vapor chamber. And the shape of the heatsink is meant to cover not just the processor, but all of the RAM chips as well, with essentially direct cooling.
I'm not so sure about that, actually. Because I'm looking at the same pictures you are, and these are ones that have been circling around entirely. Because you've got the fan, it then goes over a shroud which has the heatsink under it. Yep. And then it goes down to... Oh, okay. I see. So there is theoretically a vapor chamber.
Mm-hmm.
But then where does the exhaust go? Is it going out the back there, and this whole curve here is just to fool the mind? I mean, it has to, right? Because then it's just going to a wall.
Yeah, that's a good point. Normally with air chambers, especially with you're going for such a small system, and you're trying to push this much power out of that small size, you want the air to go out as fast as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Normal design sense, I would expect them to discharge it out the side, the closest side.
I mean, based on the way the fins are pointing, it looks like it would pump it out the back, right where the ports would be.
Yep.
Which I guess isn't the end of the world, but it does mean that those the cables are going to get nice and toasty.
That's never really been a concern. I mean, even in PC, you can feel the cables getting toasty from the exhaust from a computer.
Yeah.
Where this is going to suffer is if you stick it in like one of those back entertainment cabinets that have a back to it, and then push it all the way back. That will cause this thing to overheat. So,
time will tell, I suppose. The key things we're missing here, though, is like we see where the drive is, we see where the hard drive's going to be. They're both going to be hard drive's going to be right under the drive. Power supply is going to be built in, theoretically or supposedly, or that's just going to contain a whole bunch of MOSFETs. I'm not sure entirely which.
Well, they're saying that the power supply is integrated, so...
Alright, so that box is the power supply. That means there's no... That means there's nothing cooling the power supply.
They may be tapping a small portion of air from the fan to blow over the power supply.
So it might actually curve then.
It might have a few of the fins may curve, or a duct may pull air from the fan to the power supply.
Let me get another look at the... Yeah, this other picture. Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that we are looking at renderings.
Yeah.
We're not looking at actual parts when we're making this and making our judgments. When we see the back brace, we see the main logic board, we see power supply going over, theoretically, a chunk of the motherboard. There's a gap opening where the hard drive would be. And then that disk, there's a plate here in the front that looks like that's where the LEDs and the power lights would be. And then in the back, I see one HDMI and two USB ports.
So, typical console fittings out.
Pretty much.
I guess then, we are going to have to wait until the machine actually comes out to see a teardown of it.
Yep.
I should hope that Microsoft is actually concerned with keeping the power supply cool, as if that power supply goes, well, the console goes with it, and then it can get labeled unreliable and suffer the same fate that the original Xbox 360 suffered.
Hopefully, I mean, it is pretty basic cooling for the most part. It is a squirrel cage. It is going over a heatsink of some form. It's not like they completely revolutionized any sort of fan design, unlike the trash can of a Mac Pro that came out 3 years ago, and only now did Apple realize, oh yeah, we put out a coffee can-sized Mac Pro, didn't we? We should do something with that. So, here's what happened. Apple made a few announcements. One, they edited the pricing of the Mac Pro and did a slight processor upgrade. They also redid the pricing a little bit. It's now $1,000 cheaper. Nobody cares. And
yeah.
And more importantly, they did announce that there will be new Mac Pros next year. They're working on something that's more, quote, modular, unquote. And that there are new iMacs coming out this year. If I was a betting man, I would say mid-June, around when WWDC comes out. Now, where the Mac Pro sits now, there's a few things I want to make absolutely clear. This thing is still a pitifully underpowered workstation. Literally every other PC maker makes a better workstation.
Alright, for shits and giggles, I am going to go and load up a Mac Pro with the highest options that Apple offers.
I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you
there.
I'll
report back the price.
Here's going to be your problem. You can't get these parts anymore. These Xeons are too old. Even with the upgraded processors, they are still using Sandy Bridge E parts. They are using processors that came out 4 years ago.
Yeah. This is Apple we're talking about, though, so.
That's the sad thing. This is what Apple has become.
Yeah,
What happened to the Apple that performance was top priority? That used to exist.
That Apple was the go-to machine for artists. If you were doing music, anything, even film industry used Apples. Because PC didn't have it.
They abandoned x86 specifically because the PowerPC chips they were working with IBM on were far more powerful than the AMD and Intel equivalents. Especially Intel, because during that time Intel had no idea what the heck they were doing.
No.
The NetBurst days were a dark day.
Mm-hmm. I do have to put, on just a banana, modular equals standard ATX, and you may very well be right that Apple may go back and decide that, you know what, maybe the PC world was right, that ATX boards are a great standard, and we should use that. Probably not.
Honestly, if I had to place money down as to what Apple is going to make the next Mac Pro, I'm actually going to go to 2 years ago at CES.
Okay.
Razer, who my relationship status with them right now is complicated, came out with something they called Project Natal.
Oh, that thing.
Project... No, wait, no. No, wait, no. That was the code name for the Kinect. I'm trying to think what it was now. Natasha? Whichever. It was a computer tower that it basically looked like a stand, but it had large boxes that connected into the stand that contained the various components. They had a box for the GPU, a box for the CPU. They had one box that was always in there that was the power supply, boxes for hard drives, and you just connect them wherever. The whole thing cooled itself via water cooling with a radiator that seemed to be nowhere.
Yeah. Where was that radiator?
I don't know. I really don't.
I remember that because also Thermaltake did something similar. I was extremely intrigued by these two machines as pretty much you could say you could throw these components anywhere on the machine. It would connect, so long as you had the slots. And it was oil-cooled. It was actually not water-cooled. It was oil-cooled unit. But still, where was that radiator?
Are you talking about the level 10?
Yes.
That was actually just a case.
Oh, well.
I mean, that was a case, and that actually did use standard ATX.
Okay, I thought there was, that Thermaltake had done something that involved, the connectability, and it was just...
No, if you're actually watching the video version right now, I have a picture of the Razer Tower up right now.
And it looks like a very, very nice machine.
It looks... Here's the thing. This thing looks like a... I mean, it looks unique. It's definitely eye-catching. I still don't know where this radiator is. I don't know how it's cooling itself. And also, this just looks like a costly nightmare. Which, you know what? That is right up Apple's alley.
Yes, it is. So,
I just take this thing, make it silver, and change that Tri-Snake logo into an Apple logo. and tell me that you couldn't see that being exactly what the Mac Pro would be.
Sadly, it is. It's exactly what I could see the new Mac Pro being. Because you're right. Exactly right up Apple's.
So just record this segment right now, and let me just replay it at the end of the year when we do next year's predictions. Because I think I'm right about this. I think I am. That it's going to be something very close to this. That's exactly what I could see them doing. And with that said, let's move on to our last story of the day. More RGB RAM. There's nothing actually newsworthy here. There's nothing actually important here. All it is yet another company, in this case, G-Skill, saying, yes, we need a rainbow of light-up RAM.
The thing is that this Trident Z isn't actually all that new. I've known about it for about a month.
No, it was Corsair that did that.
No, it was
G-Skill?
It was G-Skill that did it.
Well, this is new stuff. It just came out.
Now, the jokester in me is looking at that picture of the video that you have the green for eco-friendly, your rig's consuming less power, red for speed at expensive heat. Then you kind of got that bluish, so we'll just say that's for cool. And then you got yellow, which means I don't know, untested.
Don't you know? You don't know how that works? Oh my god. Red increases your performance at the cost of generating more heat. Blue helps it cool down.
Yeah.
Helps it cool down more. Green makes it consume less power and more eco-friendly. The yellow is to increase the power, but also give off a slight amount of radiation.
I thought yellow was untested. You should kill somebody.
Well, some of the guides also say that's not cool. My brother died that way.
Yes, that's the one I have. God, it looks like a Christmas tree in there.
It does, and I'm not gonna lie, the super nerd in me that loves lights wants some, but yeah. I just can't justify doing that. I just can't.
Well, when I was looking for a new machine, specking out parts, I had actually loaded in 32 gigabytes of the RGB RAM. Because it was actually the reasonably priced RAM.
The thing is, though, is that you know what you could do with this if you were using an X99 board, so you had the multiple slots?
Mm-hmm.
Have them light up blue and close in on each other on the CPU. So you could get the full effect of the Star Trek warp core. It is absolutely necessary for everything in life. But that is going to conclude this episode. Thank you all for listening to us. You can find me at twitch.tv/eagle_falcon. My friend, Regret the Van, you can find him at twitch.tv/regret_the_van. Oh, by the way, Regret, we kept the van.
You kept Regret.
We kept the van!
Okay.
Jim made the decision at the last minute. I don't know why. Take care, everyone. Bye!